As the Great War rages across the Atlantic, Mexico slowly begins to emerge from the ashes of a bloody civil war. Political instability and corruption has caused years of torment for the people of this developing nation. As the dust settles and the country begins to work its way towards industrialization, it would bring with it one of the most unlikely creations. This is the story of Mexico's first and only tank, the TNCA Salinas. Throughout history, there have been countless tanks, all designed to kill. But not all have been a success. What happened to the ones that never made it, and why did they fail? My name is Konavark. Join me as we journey through time, uncovering failed projects and forgotten creations in Cursed by Design. Stuck working on a prototype tank in the blistering heat of the Mexican summer? Thanks to the coldest water, the weather might be too hot, but your water won't be. Promising 36 plus hours of cold water, you'll always be able to cool off with their bottles. I tested it myself and I guarantee it won't disappoint you. If you don't trust me because you're as paranoid as a 20th century Mexican revolutionary, don't worry because thanks to the 100% money-back guarantee for the first year on the coldest water products, there's absolutely no risk. So before you do anything else, click the link in the description and use the code KONE at checkout to get yourself a high-quality bottle as well as helping to support this series. Now let's talk tanks. It's hard to believe that a country which had just emerged from sheer chaos would be capable of beating an industrial giant like the United States in a field like tank building. But in 1917, that's exactly what they did. Information about this project is difficult to find and completely verify, but enough has survived to at least tell the story of this unique machine. Before we talk about the tank itself though, we need a little bit of background to understand how they were even able to build what was basically cutting-edge military technology only produced by the world's biggest powers of that day. With nearly constant revolutions occurring in the early 1900s, it's no surprise that weapons were in constant demand. This would eventually lead to a project led by General Venustiano Carranza to build armament factories for domestic production. One of these new facilities was the Talleres Nacionales de Construcción Aeronáutica, or National Aircraft Construction Factories. For the purposes of saving your ears, I'll just be referring to it as the TNCA. As the name would suggest, the main purpose of this company was to produce aircraft parts as well as early license-built aircraft. Sometime around 1916 to 1917, however, something entirely different would be turned off the production line. The man behind the project was an aviator by the name of Major Alberto Salinas Carranza. He was also the nephew of the general in charge of the factory's construction. His name, as well as the factory it was built in, would be combined to form the name TNCA Salinas, although it was more commonly known as Tankas Salinas or Salinas Tank. Although we know some about the designer, the actual design itself is a bit of a mystery. From its exterior, the tank closely resembles the World War I British landships with the same rhomboid shape. The similarities continue on the sides with sponsons each containing a machine gun. The armor thickness would likely have been similar to that of the European tanks at the time based on its estimated 7-meter length and 20-ton weight. As you may have already noticed though, the front of this tank has something quite different from other machines. Mounted in a cutout was a 37mm Hotchkiss revolving cannon. Most likely it was installed with the original gun shield still attached, which would have prevented a massive hole in the frontal armor. Some sources say this is in fact a 47mm cannon, however evidence points more towards it being the slightly smaller 37mm, since those are known to have been used in the Revolution. This fast-firing 5-barreled weapon may have come from the battleship Ignacio Zaragoza. The gun was capable of firing a solid AP round at around 455 meters per second, allowing it to punch through 45mm of steel at close range. It was also possible, according to some sources, that a 75mm cannon of some sort was tested, although the truth to that is unknown. Moving to what we know about the interior, it's presumed the crew would have been around 6 to 8, with a commander, a driver, 2 or 3 crew to man the main gun, and a man on either side crewing the machine guns. To power this beast, there are 2 likely candidates. The first was some sort of aircraft engine. This could have possibly been the indigenous Aztotl 80 horsepower engine, which was the first Mexican aircraft engine and was produced in 1917, although it may also have been another aircraft engine not domestically produced. The second possibility is that they utilized some sort of truck engine which could have been more accessible. Being an aircraft manufacturer themselves though, it's not unreasonable to believe TNCA could have opted for either choice, and for all we know it may have never actually had an engine installed at all. What we know about the usage of this tank is as limited as its design. Could there have been more built? Possibly, but unlikely. Was it used in combat? Again, it's possible, but we just don't know. A few supposed reports place it in combat twice, the first being around 1919 to 1921, and the second being in 1926 against Catholic rebels in the Cristera War. With no evidence to support this, however, there's no way to say at this point in time if this was the case. Regardless of its combat usage or lack thereof, the tank would end its days converted into a guardhouse or checkpoint outside the airbase at Balbuena sometime during the 1930s. After this, it's reasonable to assume it was scrapped, which is unfortunate since it leaves us with more questions than answers. The main question it leaves us with is what purpose was it even designed for? In Europe, trench warfare had gripped the continent, causing a stalemate. Tanks were specifically designed to counter this by being capable of crossing trenches and moving through no man's land. In Mexico, however, the fighting couldn't have been more different. Almost all the engagements were guerrilla style with no set lines, and even that was mostly over by this point. In this sort of combat, what use was the tank? Had this tank seen combat, would it have been a match for other tanks, or even just the average foot soldier? It's likely we'll never get the answer to that, but we can still speculate based on what we know. With its main armament being capable of fast fire and a good amount of damage, it would have been able to at least match the other tanks of the day in firepower. If the armor was too thin or the gun shield not properly fitted, the opening could have proved a grave mistake for those inside. Although this tank is mostly lost to time, it still shows that despite everything Mexico or other countries like it may suffer from, they can still produce something that makes us rethink what we know about history. A special thanks to the wonderful people over at Tank Encyclopedia for piecing together an article on this mostly forgotten tank. If you're interested in learning more about this tank, although I'll admit there isn't much more to learn, I'll leave a link below to the article I used primarily for this video. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel so you never miss an episode. Appearing on your screen now will be the full Cursed by Design playlist, as well as one video from my channel YouTube thinks you'll like best. Why not click on it and see if the algorithm knows you better than you know yourself? I'll see you there.